How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 106 of Talk4, the quickfire podcast where we ask 4 great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Louis Skupien. That's me. And let me introduce our very special guest for today, Coach Mike Guevara, who's going to be answering some questions today. So, Mike, how you doing today, brother? And welcome to Talk4 Podcast.
First of all, great job on pronunciation of my last name. Louis, I'm super excited to be here. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me. Ready for these 4 questions. Let's get to it.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to digging into it. So kind of traditional like start to the episode. Let's say you're at where you're based now. You've gone to the bar, or you kind of met someone cool in the elevator. 30 to 60 seconds. You've got quick elevator pitch, who you are, what your day job is, and a little kind of insight into just what a day in the life is of Coach Mike G, man.
Elevator pitch. Got it. All right. My name is Coach Mike G. I'm a performance coach, which basically means a trainer for NBA athletes. I've been working with basketball players for about 15 years now, and I train the top of the top. And what that means is we go into the weight room, we get stronger, we get more mobile, we get faster, we jump higher, all the things that you would think about for athletic development. But also, I have a digital app in which people can train with me all over the world, accessible through your mobile device. It's called GBG Hoops. It's a basketball training app for off-court performance so that you can dominate on the court. And outside of all the business stuff, I'm a man of service. I just love to serve. I love to help people. And ultimately, I feel that the avenue of coaching is how I'm best able to serve. And that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Cool, man. Ping, elevator opens, and that's a strong pitch right there, man. You got a cool thing going. I've had a look at all your stuff, and it's truly awesome stuff. But curiosity gets the better of me then. So backstory me up, man. How did you get to this stage? And so take us back into how you got involved in sports in the first place, and just run us through a bit of that pathway to your current role and the interest in being in sport.
So growing up was heavily involved in sports, from basketball to football to track and field and even martial arts. So always been an active kid, always looked forward to being outside with my friends and playing, which is what unfortunately we lack these days. But hopefully we can try to inspire a little bit of change here. And chose the sport of American football as my main avenue of athleticism, and was pretty good at it, actually. I earned a Division II scholarship to play wide receiver at Ferris State University. And just like every single football player back then, we all dreamt of going to the NFL. And trying that avenue of professional sport was something I always wanted to pursue. Unfortunately, God blessed me with all of 5'8" stature, 165 pounds. Doesn't quite lend itself to be an NFL wide receiver back then. Back then, it was all about the big 6'3", 225-pound receiver. So naturally, that career was cut short after my college days, which I had a decent college career, which lended itself right into coaching. And the reason why coaching was such an easy situation for me, an easy option for me, was because of how I developed as an athlete. So I'm Asian, I'm short, and I'm not super fast. Those 3 things don't equate to someone that looks like they play football, right? I look more like a soccer player or a tennis player, or I don't know. I just don't pass the football eye test. So that made me more motivated to spend time on myself and development, which meant heavy weight training, heavy speed training, anything and everything I could do to attach myself to get better as an athlete was what I was willing to do to change the narrative and predisposition of most people. And that naturally birthed my affinity to training. My father was a military vet, 20-year Army vet, and he raised me in a certain uh, degree of confidence. He's always, had me stand up and talk in front of people. He's always taught me to be strong and look people in the eye and shake their hand aggressively, So this type of upbringing naturally birthed like this type of confidence, which ensues the ability to coach. You got to have a certain degree of confidence to coach. So incorporating both of these developmental stages of life, having the military upbringing as well as training for football, as soon as my NFL days or dreams were cut short, it was just a natural combination, which lend itself well to coaching. So after I finished college, I started to personal train. I began to travel to parks and train soccer kids with a speed and agility. And it was just a natural calling for me. And I just really loved working with people. I loved serving. I loved to coach. And just over the course of 15 years, I was able to naturally level up from, 6 to 8 year old tennis and soccer players to high school, finally into college, Division I athletes, and then where everybody feels like they should go is the pro level, Olympians, NFL dudes, NBA players, WNBA. And here we are today. It was a long process, arduous, took a lot of discipline and dedication. But when you find your purpose, when you find the things that you truly love and are passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like you're taking steps towards a goal, towards a your calling. And that's how I was able to stick to something for 15 years. And I wouldn't say master it, but be put in a space and light of of confidence. People look to me and see me as someone high level in the space, and I don't take that lightly. So it just motivates me to continue my development as a coach and as a human, and that's where I'm at right now in my journey today.
Yeah, really, really great journey, man. It's cool to hear the backstory of people like yourself, especially nowadays when there's so many personal trainers coming through, right? So many people training, so many people coming into it, and it's nice to see that you can get to a level like you've got to. I mean, it goes a lot deeper than just what you see. But if we look at the vanity metrics, the following, the names you've worked with, all such like high tier stuff, it makes me wonder, what was it like getting that first client for you and going into personal training and coaching? How was that journey to getting into like the big leagues for you? Was it tough? Was it a long process? And
Mm.
just kind of walk me through like the start of going down this route for yourself.
Well, I'll share a short story with you guys. The whole process of me getting indoctrinated into coaching was through my own training journey for NFL opportunities. And it wasn't anything like the NFL combine. It was something a little more prerequisite, a little more lower level, but it was a combine nonetheless. And I was training at a facility to prepare for this. I went and worked out, had a decent workout, but just wasn't enough. And I understood that, and I was fine with that. But that facility asked me if I wanted to intern there. Absolutely. I love this. I love to train. I love to coach. I love to be around. This is a no-brainer. So I took a non-paid intern job, and our first assignment, we went to basically like a youth American football technical camp. It was like a 2 to 3 hour camp. You learn how to catch, just the basic fundamentals. And I'll never forget, my boss, if you will, said to me, he says, all right, Mike G, you ready? And I'm like, in my mind, thinking I'm just assisting. I'm here at this football camp. I'll be assisting my boss, and I, get my feet wet that way, right? And he's like, you ready? And I'm like, absolutely, I'm ready. Let's go. Where do you want me? What do you want me to set up? And he's like, oh, you're not setting anything up. You're leading. And I had nothing prepared. It was my first time ever being in front of parents, in front of a bunch of 8 to 12 year old kids. It was about 25 of them. And I'm like, wait. Like, what do you mean I'm leading? He's like, you're leading. This is your first assignment. We're going to see really if this is the right career path for
Have
you.
fun.
And obviously the natural emotions of anxiety, nervousness, and fear all crept up. But I remember having a little self-talk because I had like a moment, like a 15 to 20-minute moment to plan my session out. And I was thinking to myself, like, first of all, this is football. Like, this is what you've been doing for the last 15 years of your life. Like, what are you afraid of? This is football. Like, you love this sport. You know exactly how to warm people up because you've done it. You know how to put them through the different footwork drills. Like, this is, you know, this sport like the back of your hand. Okay. So that gave me a little bit of relief. And then looking at the parents, some of them are my age, some of them are older. Like, there's an array of demographic there, but I'm just like, you know what, these are people just like me. And probably most of them didn't play at the level that I played at. So that got kind of gave me a little more confidence, right? So like I'm just slowly starting to make myself feel more comfortable based off of industry baselines that I have already created with myself, like in my own career. And I'm like, you know what? This is going to be fun. Like, I really think that I'm ready for this. So I set the cones up. I start to incorporate all the drills that I used to do for myself. And I just remember, those lessons that my dad used to put me through by, speaking up, stand up tall, like all the body language necessary to provoke leadership. And he used to give me these situations all the time. I'm like, this is no different than what my dad used to make me do, except it's just in front of a bunch of little kids. So I got up there and stood tall and spoke with assertiveness. And I actually ran one of the best camps that I could have ran at that moment. Like kids were having a good time. Everybody was moving. We were getting from one drill to the next. And I remember vividly my boss telling me after the session, like, yeah, you chose the right career path. You're a natural. So that just gave me the most confidence that you could ever give me as a baseline beginner strength coach, agility coach, performance coach, however you want to call it. And that kind of springboarded me into what I am today. Because had I bombed that moment and just completely failed, who knows where I'd be right now, right? Like that's a pivotal moment in your life. And I was able to grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, and do what I knew what I was supposed to do. So that was a really keen moment for me that I always think about and reflect on because it's really about making yourself uncomfortable in this life. And the more you're able to put yourself in these situations and figure them out, the more prepared you're going to be for anything that's thrown at you. And I'm super thankful for that moment. I'm super thankful for Ty. His name was Ty to put me in that situation. I'm not sure what his purpose was for that. I'm not sure if he was trying to develop me or not, but it worked. And going from that humble beginning, working with 8-year-olds, little footballers themselves, to working with the best athletes in the world has been quite a journey. And to answer your question, I can remember vividly the first time I was offered my first major job with a pro athlete, and that was Victoria Azarenka. She was number 5 in the world as a women's tennis player, number 5. And, she comes up to me in my gym and she's like, hey, I'm interested in working with you. And I'm like looking behind me, making sure she's talking to me. You talking to me? And, what I think that she noticed the most about me was my energy. I'm full of energy. Every day is a new day and an exciting day to make a difference. And I approached every single day with that vigor. And I think that she noticed that, and she saw that, and she said, we're looking for someone to travel with us that's not in the tennis world. We want someone that's completely fresh, brand new, doesn't know the ins and outs of the tennis world. So, you might fit that build. Are you interested? I had no kids at the time, no wife at the time. There were zero reasons for me to say no. What? I jumped on that opportunity so quick. She basically said, we're going to do a 5-day trial. And if our chemistry is in a line, We like the way you train. Obviously, that has to be a thing. We can talk about putting you on a full-time contract. And full-time was like 20 to 25 weeks out of the year. Pretty substantial contract. I'll tell you what, Louis, it took me 2 days. After 2 days of training and working with Vika, she offered me a contract and I, signed it that day. So that was my first moment. And then, sky's the limit from there.
Good gig, man. Good gig. And that's funny. It is a small world, isn't it? Tying back to your original story, I was just thinking, because actually I was a tennis player since 4 years old and went professional. And yeah, I'm sure we probably know a few familiar names and stuff. Maybe a couple of guys come on the podcast before you might recognize them. But it's so true that when I got thrust into like one of these kids camps kind of coaching positions, it's very easy to go into that overcomplicated, try too hard to like structure something.
Yes, sir.
That's just too complicated for it. But actually, this ties back into what you said originally, I think, as well, about passion and following your passion. And if you are passionate about something, then you know your craft already, and you can just keep it simple and just do what you know. And that's usually always going to be the top of the line stuff. And especially when you're dealing with kids too, they appreciate something that's simple, well structured, and easy to understand.
Absolutely.
When you start throwing a 1,000 hurdles and 1,000 cones and 10 different action stations and stuff, that's when you start to get more complicated. But funny that you got to work with Azarenka. I'm very familiar with her as well. It strikes curiosity though. I've never known a tennis player to work, or I'm sure they're out there, but I just personally haven't known a tennis player to work with a coach who was outside of tennis in their profession. Mm-hmm. So from your stance point and your kind of approach to that, how do you structure a program or training for someone in a sport at a very high level who you don't really have like experience with in that industry? So what was your kind of approach to being like, okay, I know football, I know this, or soccer, you guys call it there over the pond, but how do you structure something like a training program or like an improvement program for something that you're like not experienced with in terms of the exact sport, like a different sport? So what's your approach there?
Yeah, it was brand new. It was uncharted territory for me. But one thing, Louis, about sport and athleticism is movement is movement. We are human beings that have multiple joint systems and intricate biology and physiology that as a whole does operate similarly from sport to sport. It's our job to figure out the nuances that make us different from sport to sport. And the beauty about tennis is I'm pretty sure that it's the only sport in its existence where the terrain changes from clay to grass to hard, sometimes to indoor, and even some hard court surfaces are different as well from a tactile standpoint.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a very exciting and fun challenge because now you're dealing with different ball bounce dynamics, different movement mechanics as based on how high the ball bounces, rally time changes based off of the surface. So these are like all different cool qualities that I had to figure out on the fly. But I would be remiss to say that her coach at the time, and you're probably familiar with him, Sam Sumik, was a huge part of my education. He was very instrumental in helping me understand the game of tennis. He would tell me flat out, Mike, clay, longer rallies, lower ball bounces. So what does that mean to you? That means that we got to work on being in more flex compressed positions. We got to work on our cardio. So these are like the different types of challenges and questions he used to pose me with based off of the dynamics of the surface change. Secondarily, just playing the sport itself helped me understand how movement was constructed on the tennis court. And, plyometry, as they would say in Europe, or plyometrics, is very evident in every single return, which is the split step. And being able to maximize the efficiency of a split step was something that helped me so much based off of the fact that Vika is one of the best return in the world. I don't know about now because I don't really follow her as much as I did back then, but back then, unbelievable, could return anything. So
Mm.
helping her be better at the split step, believe it or not, from a athletic standpoint, a lot of it is timing and eyes. You can't really train the eyes. She has an amazing eyeball, being she sees stuff and anticipates stuff just unbelievably well. But back that up with the ability to be elastic off the floor as well. Now you're shaving milliseconds off of that return. Boom, I can get to any ball that's placed on the court. So, I think that it was a bit of imposter syndrome for me based off the fact that I was so brand new to the sport. But again, like, you know, life is about discomfort. It's about being in spaces that don't feel easy. And I was really up for those challenges based off of my own upbringing. Being Asian in America, where you're predominantly the only Asian person, especially only Asian football player, was extremely uncomfortable. Had to figure it out. And this was no different. So, I was up for the challenge. Like I said before, I had a great supporting staff. Vika was extremely gracious with me. She was, she knew that I wasn't from the tennis world, so she wasn't impatient with me. She chose me as her strength coach personally. So, you know, I think that when you have that type of recipe, it allows you to grow, and that's exactly what happened. And we were able to do really cool things together, and I'll never take that for granted.
Wicked. It's a great story, and definitely a very, very good client to land initially. And so I'm trying to draw I'm kind of trying to put together your story in my head as you speak here. So from what I'm kind of taking is if I put it into a nutshell, you had Azarenka, and then you went on to some other huge clients, and you got some big names, and then you started to get massively overbooked, probably with your personal training and your
Mm,
coaching. And then you went to found or co-found rather GBG Hoops. Greatness breeds greatness. And I want to ask you then,
right
because
there.
I know I was thinking that hat's so cool. I need to get one of those. I wanted to ask because I've found in the past on this show, a lot of the people who have founded brands and have kind of slogans like that, they have a little story behind them. So for greatness breeds greatness, is there a little story behind that, or is there like a meaning that has for you or the
Yeah.
co-founder as well? And what does that look like for you then? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, we're full of anecdotes today. I love that. I love telling stories, and I think people attach to stories much better than just me talking. But before I even go into that, I need to shout out my wife, Hadaya. She is the brains behind the operation. She designed the logo. She's a creative
Nice.
herself, so shout out to her. She is the other. She is the co-owner of my ownership, whatever. Anyways, the story behind greatness breeds greatness. Okay, so I think that people could probably relate the slogan "greatness breeds greatness" best to iron sharpens iron. And it's very similar from that standpoint, meaning, Louis, when I'm great, you're great. We both have this persona and approach to the way we live on a day-to-day basis that we want to maximize anything and everything that we do. And then the beautiful composition of us being together in the same room, sky's the limit, because anything that I do on a high level, all it's going to do is make you better, because you're going to rise everything that you're doing to match that level. And we're just going to keep bouncing greatness back off of one another until we finally reach this ultimate extreme level of greatness to where we both are just invincible. And that's kind of the short description of how greatness breeds greatness means to me.
Yeah.
And that story behind this logo is based off of what I used to say in the weight room all the time to the New Orleans Pelicans. I was with the Pelicans for 2 seasons. And at the time, Anthony Davis was there. And being motivational is a part of the job description. You have to be able to motivate. Coaches do it in different ways. I am a rah rah, screaming, shout, but tastefully type coach, helping people raise their energy, because if life is all about intention, and if you don't approach situations with the right intentions, you're not going to maximize that situation. So my job is to set the tone, right? So I yell out, greatness breeds greatness. You know what I mean? All the time. And AD took note of that. He liked that. He rocked with that. So one day he comes up, he's like, my GBG. And I'm like, I'm not registering. I'm not really picking up what he's putting down. He's like, what do you mean? You don't know? Why are you looking at me like that? GBG. I'm like, I'm lost, brother. I'm sorry. He's
There
like,
it
greatness
is.
breeds greatness. And I was like, touche. Okay. So that was the moment when I was like, GBG. Like that's sticky. People can remember it. It's much easier than saying greatness breeds greatness. And that's literally how the brand was born.
I love it.
Um, you put together this backstory and have a super talented person make a logo. I'll tell you what this means. So obviously the G's are mirroring each other. That's you and I. B's in the middle. Okay. This bar represents the floor. So you see we're elevating, which is the wings. So we're elevating each other. And this symbol here is the Chinese symbol for strength or courage. And there you have the backstory of our brand called Greatness Breeds Greatness.
Oh, that's really cool. And I was thinking that at the beginning of the podcast, man, I need to ask Coach G here what that hat is, because that's a wicked design. So shouts out to your amazing wife. That's a serious design job you've done there. So on the subject of greatness breeding greatness, then I have to ask for this question then. So with some of the people that you've worked with in this, in this caliber of high performance athletes and stuff, two-part question here. What have you noticed in what they do and how they act and how they approach challenges that you think has at least contributed to them being at the level that they are? So like, what are some of those things that separate them from the pack in the sense? And the second part of that too, if we talk about that whole bouncing of greatness breeds greatness, as a coach going into these situations with athletes of this caliber, how are you raising that bar as well as a coach, and how do you do that? So kind of two-part, what were you seeing in those athletes and what were you trying to do to match or even better that performance caliber?
Well, let me just start off with the idea of contextualization for the first part of the question, because even at the highest level, NBA, NFL, WTA, ATP, there are levels to those spaces as well, and people are so talented, touched by God, so talented that they can literally walk into a playing arena, whatever their sport is, and make it happen. You know the stories. You know the people that don't pick weights up, that don't believe in training hard, that don't, whatever the case is, everything that I stand for, they don't believe in bad nutrition, bad, whatever it is, but still make it happen. So the people that I deal with separate themselves by squeezing all of the juice out of the lemon. Not a drop of juice is left in that lemon. And I use that metaphor based off the fact that they are maximizing every single thing that they can to be the best that they can. You talk about Victoria Azarenka. You talk about Jrue Holiday, Fred VanVleet, Spencer Dinwiddie. These types of people are literally doing the most that they can to be the best that they can. And I create that context because I've witnessed, and we're obviously not going to point people out or say names, but I've witnessed people at these same high levels do not the minimum, but just do enough to check the box and still have amazing, long lasting careers. So the point that I'm trying to build is that I think talent is the most highest determining thing that dictates the pros from everybody else. And it's just simply talent. Like, you can't put the puzzle together any different type of way, any other way. Like, talent begets anything else. Now, there are people who are less talented that still make it because of the way they approach their diet, their sleep, their training, etc. And that's how they get there. Those are the people I want to work with. But when you talk about Jrue Holidays of the world, the Freddie VanVleets of the world, Fred VanVleet, he's 6 feet, 200 pounds.
That's a big guy.
He's not supposed to be in the NBA, but he's not supposed to be in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Like, his measurables don't add up. It don't make sense, but he's the highest paid free agent, undrafted free agent player ever. So we do have these special individuals that really maximize every piece of component that they can to be the best that they can. But talent is exactly the number one thing that's going to get you to where you want to be. And, not to discourage anyone, but just my own perspective and just speaking from my experience and seeing what I've saw, talent is the number one thing that separates pros from everybody else. So that's just what it is. And unfortunately, we can't pick our parents.
No, sure.
But shout out to everybody that really understands the investment that it takes to be the best that you can. I mean, if you look at the top of the top, though, the 1s and 2s and 3s of the world, the GOATs of the world, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Jerry Rice, Lionel Messi, like all the Ronaldo, like they're known for their amazing work ethic. So obviously the GOATs of the world are going to be in that special category, but there are people that are hovering at 50 and 100 that don't do as much, but still make it happen. And it's because of talent, So that's that. And number 2, what am I doing to set the bar? I think that self-development is number 1. Like in any passion, space, field of career field, if you truly love what you do, you're seeking out rooms that have people way smarter than you. And you're in those rooms doing less of this, and more of this. Like, that's the problem with today is people want to talk all day, and I'm on a podcast talking all day, but being able to talk less and listen more is the key. And you got to go to the right spaces to listen more. And I think that was a huge part of how I was able to reinvent, set a new stage, set a new bar for myself to help my athletes continue to see my own development and progress as a coach, right? Like, I like to see these athletes develop, but these athletes are also like, well, what about you? How are you going to make me better and continuously make me better over the long haul? So I'm always trying to be a part of, conferences, seminars, seeking out knowledge, asking questions, and not having an ego to lower my ability to just listen. Like, it's okay to just listen. And I think that ego is a big part of that. Everyone wants to, say what they believe in and talk about what they're doing. But, losing your ego and being in a room to learn from other individuals, whether you believe in what they're saying or not, doesn't matter. You have to lower your guard down, be subjected to vulnerable spaces and learn. And that's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. In my over a decade and a half of time in sports professionally, I've always wondered this question, and I think something you said has kind of sparked at least a little bit of understanding towards what the answer may truly be here, because there's no like set line for it. But when we talk about athletes, now I think we can structure this so that we cater this question towards athletes, but I think that it's also applicable to people in professional lives, in business and everything too. But where does an athlete go? Where is that line that you cross when you go from performance to high performance? Like, where is the shift there? And I think something that you said kind of gave me at least a little bit of an idea to what that might be. And I think that it might actually be what you said about the people who just check the boxes to get it done. Those are the performance athletes. And then you have high performance, who are the people who go above and beyond. Like, they are passionate, they are driven, and they want to do the extra work without being told, without it being on the list, without it being asked of them. in your opinion, is that just part of it, and is there more? But like, kind of, where is that shift out of performance athlete / person to high performance in life?
Well, everything is mindset driven. There's a why behind everything. Why is it that I'm okay with being 50th in the world as a tennis player? Like, I'm cool with being 50th. Why is that? And, you know, disregard who's number 50th in the world on both sides. I don't know who's 50th, but
No
if
offense.
I'm 50th in the world, I have the potential to be 25. There's not a huge disparity there. People change their rankings all the time. It's up and down throughout the entire season. So what is the why behind the idea of being okay with 50th in the world? And I think it all comes down to the mindset behind sacrifice. Because in order to become number one in the world or top 10 or top 20, there is sacrifice involved, whether that be away from social aspects of life, personal aspects of life, family aspects of life, joyous aspects of life. Like, these are all categories and buckets of life that you will need to pull from to create the time to invest into being the best version of yourself. And sometimes people do not want to do that. That is not negotiable for them. They believe that they want to live their life the way they do. They're happy and content with the way it's going, and they will continue to beat to the rhythm of that drum. And who am I to tell them that's good, bad, or indifferent? That's their choice. Respect and power to you. However, if you tell me, Coach Mike G, I want to be number one in the world, or I want to be top 10, and I present to you what I feel is the best avenue and pathway to get there based off of assessment of nutrition, sleep habits, movement habits, biomechanical assessment, etc. All of these metrics that we can objectify and say, well, your vitamin D level is too low. Okay, that has a huge correspondence of why you're always sore or what have you. Well, you're only sleeping 6 hours a night based off of a wearable. Maybe we should invest 7.5, which is an hour and a half, 90 minutes taken away from other things in life that you're going to have to sacrifice. So providing these different types of chapters for athletes to look at and say, you know what? I told Mike G, I want to be top 10 in the world. Okay. These are my goals. I hired him for a reason. Maybe I should listen to him, and then actually putting rubber to road, so to speak, doing the things, do the things. That's the difference. That is the difference between great and good. I understand information is infinite. You want to know about something, you look it up on the internet. But who's doing? Who is actually putting their strategy into action consistently on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis? That's the difference.
Yeah, that's a very strong answer, and man, what a pleasure to have you on the show today. But kind of rounding off question, something that I like to kind of try at least to achieve in the podcast is to have everyone who's listening come away with at least something. And I think from what we've just been talking about there, I'd like to kind of go into just quickly now. Like you said, everyone wants to do it. Everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to be that number one in the world, but no one, there's such a small percentage of people who actually go and do the work to go and actually achieve that stuff. And even if they do, it's usually quite short term. It's like, a great daily habit is something that you're going to be doing in 15 years time. Like, that's how it works. But so everyone listening, let's say everyone has said to Mike G, I want to be successful. Right. Okay, cool. Out of your coaching years, seeing such high performance athletes and working with the people that you have, and also your own journey too, if you could give one or two pieces of advice to everyone listening that would, from seeing the performance levels that people work at in high performance teams and individuals in sport, obviously very different kettle of fish, sport versus like business, but some of those traits, some of those motivations, and some of those ways that they tackle things, what could you tell people or give a little bit of coaching advice to like a generalized everyone that they could take away from here and start applying into their life, which you think would just, catapult success rate or productivity rate or something? Just a little bit of advice there for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you two, and these pop out to me explicitly. Number one, community. You are the sum of the 5 closest people to you, which means you have to choose your community extremely wisely. So when you look at yourself and you start to think about who are the 5 closest people to me and what are they doing? Now you start to organize your circle a little bit more different. And I think that if you have these grandiose visions of being an amazing individual in whatever space that it is that you're pursuing, look at the 5 closest people to you. Ask yourself, what are they doing and how are they doing it? And then start to build that and then start to reconstruct that circle. You may not have to. You might say, okay, my circle is tough. It's tight. All of these people are getting it done at a high level. This is an amazing circle of trust. But when you have this self-realization and reflection and you start to question your circle, sometimes it's difficult to detach from certain people, and that might be the sacrifice that we spoke of earlier that's necessary. So I think community is a huge part of how to be successful and what you need to do to get to that next level, because that circle is going to be your consultation, your advice, your support, always contributing and GBGifying the entire group. We all got something to contribute. We all can come to the table with something and offer it to the group, and we're all going to get better from it. Do you have that? So I think that that's extremely important. And if you don't have that, we need to start looking at how to get that. And then number 2, self-care, man, because you can't be great for people if you're not great for yourself. And being able to create these daily routines, whether it be a morning routine, evening routine, intermittent fasting, movement practices, mindful practices, all the things that is well documented with these high level individuals, whether it be CEOs, athletes, coaching, it doesn't matter. It's everywhere. You can't even, it's not even a secret no more. Like these morning routines aren't even a secret no more. Everyone has a morning routine. Go online, YouTube, whatever, look up morning routine. You're going to find some really cool stuff. Why aren't we doing that? Because at the end of the day, your output is based off of your input, and what you put inside your body, inside your mind, is going to dictate how quality your output is and how much you have to output as well. So, doing the necessary things to make sure you're at your best is going to have a huge difference in how you operate. And those are my 2 takeaways.
Thanks, bro. Great advice. And new podcast tradition, final little question then. If you found a young kind of 12, 13-year-old Mike G running around the streets and you had a chance to, put a few words in his ear, what would be your life advice for a young you?
Don't be ashamed of being Asian. I was extremely ashamed of being who I am, who you see right now. I hated it. I was constantly made fun of being, an Asian American, and it naturally made me feel shameful of it. So if 39-year-old me saw 12-year-old me back then and I was able to have a cool little conversation, I tell them, man, you have no idea how impactful you're going to be in the future just based off of how you look. Embrace it, own it, stand up for it. And that would have helped me so much with confidence and just made life a lot easier at that time. So that's definitely what I'm, just be true. Be okay with being your true self, sir. That's it.
I love it. That's such a nice sentimental a round off there. And Okay, so very last thing then is the classic shameless plug. So anyone listening who's really enjoyed all of the stuff that you're doing and wants to get some training, if they're local to you, or they want
Yeah.
to do some online stuff, or if they just want to follow you and see the amazing stuff that you do and get some motivation and see a really cool guy with a great hat screaming greatness breeds greatness on Instagram, where can we find all of that? So plug in now.
Yes, thank you for this platform. Shameless plug, first of all, Instagram, gbg.hoops, gbg.hoops. And I point to that because that's where a lot of information is funneled. So anything and everything that's product based, service based is going to be there. DM me. I answer all DMs. And if I don't, shame on me and make me feel bad about it. YouTube, GBG Hoops YouTube, lots of free content on there from working out, training to just coaching, wellness, etc. We have an app, GBG Hoops, as well. You can access that through our website, gbghoops.com, because if you download it straight from the App Store, you're going to run into some issues. So go to the website and yeah, just follow me on Instagram, man. I think that that's the easiest, most prevalent way to follow people. So that's no different for us as well.
Brilliant stuff. Mike Guevara, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today on the Talk4 podcast. And thanks for coming on, man. Absolute pleasure.
Louis K, salute, man. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 106. And if you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones too, we've got great guests lined up. So proud of it. Go and hit that subscribe button. It really helps. And spread some love. Leave a like, leave a comment, share it around a bit if you enjoyed it. And yeah, guys, good night. Fights on. See you in the next episode.